Welcome to the 41st Mill Valley Film Festival. My name is Joanne Parson. I am the Director of Education for the California Film Institute. We run the Mill Valley Film Festival. We own this awesome theater. And we also run a year-round CFI Education program that this is part of. I'm just so thrilled that you guys could all be here for this screening today. I want to welcome everyone who's in the house, because I know some of you guys came from longer distances, and this is a really awesome opportunity to have you guys all here. So I want to thank all the students who are here from Tamalpais High School, down here in front. All the students from the college preparatory school. Where are you guys at? Over there. From La Lagunita School. I know some of you are still coming, but some of you are here to represent. The rest are on their way in. Terra Linda High School. Awesome. San Antonio High School. Excellent. And where's my Lick Wilmerding? Lick Wilmerding in the back. Awesome. So welcome to all you guys. I want to thank a bunch of people that make it possible for you guys to be here today, but the very first people that we want to thank are the ones that literally make it possible for you to be here, which are your teachers who arranged for you guys to come here on a school day and see a movie. So a huge round of applause for all your teachers. If you could thank them. It is not an easy feat getting all of you guys onto buses out of school, down here, to attend a screening on a school day. So they really are huge champions, and we are so grateful for their participation in our programs. But the other people that I want to thank is a bunch of organizations that help sponsor our festival and our programs, and our education programs in particular. We can't do what we do without our sponsors. We are a nonprofit organization. All this stuff that you see around you and all those buses you came on, obviously all those things, they cost money. And our sponsors are a tremendous, tremendous support to us that make it possible for us to do all of that so that you guys cannot just be here, but be here for free. So I want to thank the Harbor Point Charitable Foundation in honor of Ray Kaliski Sr. I want to thank the Each Foundation, the Marin Community Foundation, the Horace W. Goldsmith Foundation, and Resonance Philanthropies. A huge round of applause for all those sponsors. They are our saviors. Okay, one very important thing before we do anything else is, I know some of you may have heard from some of our awesome security crew in the house. This is a secure screening. You guys are seeing this before it opens to the general public. You may not record or do anything that would jeopardize this film before it comes out. So if you have a cell phone on you, which I know some of you awesomely kept yours in a box outside, thank you to Mr. Levinson. Some of you didn't bring them. But if you have your phones, please put them in your pockets, turn them off. If they come out, if a light is seen, the security people will take them away from you. That is what they will do, and we don't want that to happen. We also want to have some ultimate respect for this film, the filmmakers, and everyone else in the audience, so that we're not turning on anything or listening to anything when the film is going on. I don't think you're going to want to do that, because this film is incredibly gripping, and it's amazing, and there's no reason you would have any idea of wanting to look at your phone in the middle of it, but just in case. We have some amazing guests for you today. Like, I can't tell you how excited I am about having this film, not just in our education program, but that we were graciously offered an incredible round of guests that are here to talk to you about it afterwards. We have several, but I'm going to start off with, to come up for an introduction for you, the director, George Tillman Jr. is here. He, if you don't know him, is the director of Soul Food and Notorious. Oh, no, sorry. He is a producer of the Soul Food series and the Barbershop series, but he directed Notorious, Soul Food. Oh, he did direct it. It's been a long morning. Men of Honor and The Longest Ride, and he's the director of The Hate You Give. Please welcome George Tillman Jr.
Thank you guys for coming. How many of you guys read the book? Oh, that's great, great. Well, that's good. So you can read the book after you see the movie. Angie Thomas, this is her first movie. This is her first book. She got it published right off the bat. She's only like 23 years old, and I was just blown away by her book and how it explored race, how it explored police brutality, how it explored how we treat one another, how we love one another, relationships. It has all these things in there, things that affected me when I was growing up. And this was a movie that I had to tell. I met her and I demanded, please let me direct this film, and we talked about it, and 20th Century Fox put up the money for this film, and we're very excited. So I hope you love the movie. I will be back afterwards. If you do, tell everyone to go see the movie this weekend and tell your friends, and I think you guys will enjoy it, and I'd love to talk with you guys afterwards, okay? So thank you.
Thank you, George. And George will be back after with some special guests, someone you might recognize from the film. She'll be here. Please welcome back the director, George Tillman Jr. I would also like to invite our other special guests from Fox 2000, Elizabeth Gabler, one of the great, amazing people who made this film possible from Fox 2000, and Aaron Siminoff as well, our producers. Wherever you would like to sit, you choose first. And please welcome Amandla Stenberg. I'll send you. And I have an extra mic. You need a mic. Oh, you have. No, there you go. Perfect. Fantastic. So what'd you guys think? So just to get, I'm going to make sure you guys get a chance to ask some questions, but just to get us started, if you guys could just talk a little bit about the genesis of this film, how you knew you wanted to take Angie's book and turn it into this movie, and particularly, if this was kind of the audience that you were hoping to take advantage of that.
This is definitely the audience we were hoping to inspire with this film. I'm going to let Aaron start out and tell you how we got this project and how our studio embraced it from the very beginning, and what a wonderful ride it's been. So.
Well, we received Angie's manuscript before it was published, and we had read it and obviously knew that it was something really special and that it felt like an important and timely story that needed to be told. And the next steps after that were George Tillman, the director, who we've worked with many times before, had a very, very strong feeling about the film and about his vision of it. And we had a phone call with him that I will never forget, because we got off that call and we're like, we have to do this. This is not even a question. And he was so passionate about it. And then, so we optioned the project, and Amandla also came in. We had a meeting, and she shared a lot of her own personal stories and things that related to the movie. And so it's just, from the beginning, everybody involved, it's just been the most kind of blissful, wonderful vision that we've all had together, and we're so proud of the film and what these two wonderful people have done.
And George, you said a little bit about at the beginning, but if you could maybe elaborate on, why you knew that this story needed to be told now in this way.
Yeah, I just felt the story was very important. I just fell in love with Star as a character. The ideal of having two different worlds and her navigation and navigating between these two different worlds, version 1 and version 2, and how the shooting of Khalil changed her whole life to really make herself look within herself and see how she can change things. I love how difficult it was for her. The ideal, nothing came very easy. The ideal of Haley and Chris, the ideal of trying to stand up to the cops. I just love that moment when she holds the phone. It's one of her first moments. The first time she held the cell phone, she dropped it. The second time, she knew her rights. And you start seeing from there her gaining her strength and her power, as her dad says, her superpower. So I was really attracted to that journey, because it's a journey that I just haven't seen in the film before. And obviously, all these things are relevant, but the ideal of a personal journey and how we can stand up for what we believe is what attracted to me as a director.
And Amandla, for you, excuse me, I imagine that this is an incredibly emotional journey of making this film, and how incredibly powerful, your role is, and sort of that experience of the trajectory as you kind of gradually built up that level of emotion over the course of the film, how that felt for you.
Yeah, it was amazing. Who in here has read the book? That's a lot of people. This book is so close to my heart. So I actually had the opportunity to read this book before it was even published. It was an unpublished manuscript. And when I read it, I just felt so filled up and validated. When I grew up, I grew up in a neighborhood that was black and lower income, but I went to a school across town that was white and privileged, and I always felt really isolated in that environment. And within the first couple pages in the book, Star talks about how she splits herself into two parts because she feels like she doesn't belong in either world, but she figures out how to present herself differently in those different spaces in order to feel accepted. And that was something that I connected with immediately, and I felt like I'd never seen that written down before in a book, or not necessarily even portrayed in a movie. And so when I heard that they were optioning it and that it was going to be turned into a movie, I got a meeting as soon as I could, because I felt like I could bring my own experience to Star and hopefully do her justice and just express feelings that we all experience, which is whether you're the only Black kid in your class, you're the only gay kid in your class. There's a lot of different things that can make you feel different or isolated. But I think something that's really cool about this story is no matter what, realizing that it is okay to show up as your most authentic self, that you don't have to make yourself smaller for anybody, and that the people who are gonna get you are gonna get you, and those are the people that you roll with. So it's been a journey from the beginning, because I fell in love with this book, and it was a huge honor to be able to play this character. And super emotional. Definitely a lot of feelings were brought up during the process of filming.
All right, so I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions. Know in advance I won't be able to get to everyone, but we will do our best. If you do have a question, I'm going to ask you to stand up and say it super loud so everyone can hear it. If you can, I'll repeat it, but just so that we can make sure that we're all participating fully. Questions? Yes, I will start with you. Stand up. Here, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Nancy Huang. I go to TAM, but I just wanted to say, this whole movie was very beautiful, and you are very beautiful. But oh my God, okay.
You got it, girl.
Okay, so basically my question is, have you, what is some advice that you would give to people who are dealing with these type of situations where they have to switch code, in different environments, in different communities? Like, what would you do if you were, in that situation?
Thank you for the question. I think it's complicated. I feel like there's kind of this idea that if you code switch, which is something that we all do, you're different at home, versus when you show up at school. You're different depending on how comfortable you feel, who you're around, how you feel like you're allowed to express yourself. And I feel like there's an idea that there's something wrong with that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I feel like, period. I feel like that's natural and that's understandable. And for a while, I used to think that because I was presenting myself differently in different spaces, that meant that there was something wrong with me. But I think that's just an inherent part of being a human being who is multifaceted and who knows how to adjust according to what space you're entering into. And I think sometimes I needed the affirmation that I was still a whole and complete human being, even though I was having to navigate a lot of different environments. So I guess the advice that I would give is just to recognize that just because you code switch, because you know that you have to present yourself differently in different spaces, doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. And don't let that idea stop you from showing all the way up. And what I love about Star's journey is she makes the decision to not be around people who make her feel smaller and make her feel like she cannot be her authentic self. And she says, you know what, there's no longer a Star version 2, I'm just Star. And I feel like that is really important, just putting yourself in places, putting yourself around people, if you have the ability to make that choice, who accept you for who you are, who don't make you feel smaller, because we get to choose our friends and our family. And I think you should put yourself around people who allow you to be your most authentic self.
Yes, I'm going to go all the way in the back. Yep, there's no one else behind you right there. No, we're going to start with him and we'll get back to you.
Have you acted in any other films, and if so, which one?
Have I acted in any other films? When I was 12, I was in The Hunger Games. When I was... Why y'all laughing? When I was in a movie called Everything, Everything. I was also in a movie called The Darkest Minds. Yeah, that's my more recent work. Yes.
Awesome. Yes, right there.
One question, like in the current political climate, I know it can be like really difficult to like still have hope. So like, how do you like deal with that? Like, how do you still have hope that you still want to continue your videos?
How do you still have hope in today's political climate to keep doing the work that you do? Which might apply to all of you guys, quite honestly.
Well, I think for us as a studio, it's really important to find material that is really positive. This film is about a positive family that stays together and that supports what their daughter's going through. The parents are very supportive of all the kids. They understand that one son has two families. They understand that there's a world of violence in their community, and in some regards want to protect their family from it, but then ultimately the community bonds together, which again is a really positive message because all of those people live in that world and they want to make it a better world. And I think that's an important thing for us to all understand, is that you can make a difference. And that's one of the messages that we felt was important about this film, to help people cope with what's going on right now.
George, you want to speak to that a little
No,
too?
Elizabeth said it great. Everything. I believe everything that you said.
And Amandla, did you want to add that?
Yeah, honestly, you guys give me so much hope. I feel so impressed by my generation and generations younger than mine, because I see that we have a tendency to be conscious, to recognize systems and structures that we don't believe in, and to, in our daily lives, make the decision to fight them and try to break them down. And so I'm constantly inspired by my peers and by you guys who are even open to seeing a movie like this and wanting to talk about it afterwards. Yeah, we had a screening last night here in Mill Valley, in which there were 5 black girls from this program called Uproar, who asked the most insightful, amazing questions just about code switching, about blackness, about showing up in spaces that you haven't been allowed to be a part of, about how to be your most authentic self, just really amazing questions. And we were like speaking the same language. And what I recognized even just sharing this film is that my generation is just so impassioned and inspired. And I like to think about the times that we're living in as a response to that. I like to look at our administration and the way in which they are responding to us as kind of like a death rattle. Because I think they recognize how powerful we are, how we have the ability to shift our political narratives, how we have the ability to change our legislation and the ways in which we treat each other. And I think what we're witnessing with these tyrants and these bullies who are so ignorant is like this desperate attempt to cling onto some of the ideologies of the past. And I don't think that they would be doing it in the way that they were doing it if they didn't recognize that it's their time to go. So that's how I like to think about it.
And can I just say that those girls from Uproar, they contacted me directly so that they could get tickets to your screening, because they really, really wanted to be there, and I wanted them to be there. But that, you know, that sense of like, they saw an opportunity for something that spoke their story and they asked for it. Which I just encourage, like, you know, that's what you guys need to keep doing too, is like, if you see where your voice does need to be and need to be heard and where your stories are being told, that you make sure that you are asking for that or demanding that, because that was a place I knew that they needed to be. So I'm so glad that they sat in the front row too. That really happy. Other questions? Yes, right here.
So I was wondering what was the emotional toll, because a lot of it is acting, and just all of it, just thinking about it. Like, how much of it was, you know, getting the movie done, how much of it was just feeling real about it? 'Cause I know with the Prevail Station,
Yeah, it was very emotional. I think everybody worked really, really hard. That extra, you know, we just took that extra time to make it right. It was a responsibility, you know, to do a film like this. but it was so honest. Everybody was like a family, you know. Regina Hall, Common, Issa Rae, you know, everybody just kind of came together because we had rehearsals, we spent time together. So that was able to break up the, you know, some of the heaviness that we had to be able to create throughout the process. But what I love about the film is that it has this, it's a very inspiring film, you know, it's ups and downs, it's like life. We go through so many different obstacles in our life, but we keep pushing, that's part of the human spirit. So that idea was just embraced with everyone on the set, from the crew, from the cast. It was one of the best experiences that we all had. So that helped us get through those moments, and you just feel good that you're making something that means something. So
There was
Yeah, it
one right
was-
there. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to add. It was heavy on set. Yeah, there were moments where everyone was dead silent. There were moments where people were crying, where they were looking at the monitors, which is not always the case. That, you know, the crew members are always that engaged. So I think everyone felt the entire time that we were making something that was really heavy and had a really it had an intention. And the result was that everyone was more committed than anything I've ever witnessed before, because we understood that we had the responsibility of portraying real events. You know, it's not just fiction. And so we knew we wanted to do it justice, because we wanted to honor the lives of Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Philando Castile, you know, all the lives that have been lost, and there's so many more, to police brutality. So it was heavy, but there also was a lot of joy. We had Regina Hall on set. She played my mom. She was constantly cracking jokes, constantly keeping us like light and giving us, you know, the joy and the humor in the midst of it. And like that's how we moved through things together as a community.
Yes, there was one right on the aisle right there. Yeah.
I don't have a question, comment. I just felt, you know, you guys did a great job in the casting, great job in the performances. And as I was watching the movie, I was really kept going back to that first scene where he was explaining how to act when you get pulled over by the police. And now I have two sons, 6 and 10, and I really, you know, I'm dreading that conversation. You know, I think, I often think when I'm going to have that conversation, am I a bad dad because I'm having that and telling them, you know, this is, you know, to look at things differently and change their view. Am I a bad dad because I'm not having that conversation, not preparing? When my son, you know, was 10, he's about the same age I was when I had police point guns at me in my backyard. And so, you know, I felt like you did a great job.
thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that scene was, and there's a reason why. You know, I opened up the scene where we see this, we see the outside, you know, the kids playing on the street and the sidewalk, and the camera goes through the window. And the reason instinctively to do that, because in neighborhoods like Garden Heights, that's an everyday event. It's like they playing outside, they having a conversation inside. It's just a normal conversation that comes up that happened to me with my dad, with my uncles and relatives as well. It was interesting. We were just in Atlanta last week, and we had a screening. And as we were walking out of the Q&A, it just hit me right there. Somebody grabbed me, and I turned around. They asked me to take a picture. It was like 4 people. It was a mother, father, and 3 kids. And they said, "We love the movie. We part of the Emmett Till family." And I was just shocked and surprised, because we did reach out to them in terms of using his picture that was in the book. And it just helped. It just makes you realize, you know, like Emmett Till, he had that same conversation with his mom before he went down to Mississippi. But that understanding of what it's like in Mississippi and what it's like in Chicago is completely different. So we have the ability to make changes. You know, I have a 15-year-old son too. I had that conversation. I had the conversation after he saw the movie again. So that's what I'm hoping that people would be able to embrace and have a conversation, be able to talk. It is painful, but it's the reality. So I appreciate you having what you just said. Thank you very much.
Yes, right there now.
So, like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how good is being
That was bold. I said that was bold. It was a bold question. I don't know if I'm about to rank that. I don't think I have an objective. I think I have more of an objective perception because I'm not really into dudes. So I couldn't necessarily tell you from the same perspective as you.
It looked great, though.
It looked great. For me,
You did it good.
for me, it was kind of like kissing like my brother. Yeah, so I couldn't really give you
But
more
they kissed
details
all
on
the
that.
time. We had rehearsals, and it was great. I loved it. I try to get it in as much as possible for those guys.
All right, all the way over there on the aisle. Yeah.
So one of the scenes that really stuck with me from the book was when during Korea's funeral, King placed a handkerchief on his chest. And I was wondering if you could speak about your decision of reading that scene and how to interpret it.
Yeah, that's a very good question. There was a scene where King actually walks up to the casket and put the handkerchief down, and what it was that was really an interesting scene because it was a difficult scene because you have a schedule that you have to make when you make a film. In that particular scene, you have Star and the family sitting in the middle of the congregation. Then you have Issa Rae, who's playing April Ofrey. And then you have Khalil's mom, and then you have Aisha, and then you got Seven. It was like so many things to hit, so many characters that we had to bounce around to. Actually, everybody that was in the movie, besides Haley and Chris, was there. So it was a choice that we just made. The ideal of Star looking back at King and King giving that look was part of the adaptation that we felt was important. What was the most important that we can really do? And if he had done that, I think it would have took the scene over and became more about King. So we wanted to make the scene about Star feeling the pressure and the pressure of the neighborhood on her shoulders. So that was just a choice that we made, me and the writer Audrey Wells, very early on, and also with Angie Thomas when she's seen it. You know, that's one of the things, you can't get everything in, but we felt like we got all the pieces that we really need.
Yes, right there.
So there was a line that Star said that was, if you can't see my blackness, then you can't see me. How true do you think that statement is, and how do you think it affects people's lives?
Nicely worded. For me, when I read the script for the first time, well, first when I read the book, but then when we were getting down to the final stages of the script, I read the final draft of that scene, and I was like, oh my God, I wish that I had this when I was in high school, because I could have avoided a lot of confusion, a lot of insecurity, a lot of not being my fullest and truest self, if I had understand that concept. Because I grew up in a school with a lot of white kids, and oftentimes when they thought about race, they would try to think of me without my race, as if that was some sort of equalizer, as if they didn't think of me as black, they were disregarding the differences between us, and therefore they were thinking of me as equal. But in that process, they were actually invalidating all of the parts of myself that made me me, and why being different is actually really cool, because it's a part of your identity. And so I think that, that scene is really important, because the idea that, I don't see color, I just see you as a person, I think that has really good intention, but it also kind of relies upon the implication that we live in a post-racial society, that we live in a world where race doesn't affect how we're seen or how we are perceived, or how we can navigate the world. And so I think it is really important that when we're thinking about equality and being loving towards each other, that we recognize that you have to look at your peers in their totality, in all of the parts of them that make them them. And that's really integral in terms of acceptance and true acceptance and true love and understanding.
All right, we have time for one last question, so I want to make it matter right there. Stand up.
Hi, Gabby.
Hi. And so the question that I had for you is towards the end of the film, you, when you're protesting, you say that, no matter how much you spoke up and you protested, the police officers wouldn't listen to your stories and experiences. And so I think, all the people here who are activists and really want to become involved in the community, how do you think we make police officers, the administration, really listen to our stories and our experience?
You made that matter. Thank you.
Oh, that is so tricky. For me personally, I think there's just so much power in telling your story, in making your story understood to people who don't afford you the humanity that you deserve. And so that's what this film was. It was an exercise in trying to create something that could humanize us, that could make police officers, non-people of color, those who exist outside of the Black community, understand who we are and understand the depth and all the facets of our lives, and why it is so important that we take these events seriously, and why it's so important that we afford Black people all of the humanity that they deserve. So I think there's a huge power in continuing to tell your story, continuing to show up, continuing to exist, not allowing anyone to take your humanity away from you. Being an artist, sharing your art, sharing yourself, thriving, and just showing up with all your Black girl magic and saying, hey, I'm here, and I deserve to be seen as a human. Period.
Hey, I think there's one more. I think we kept missing you.
So my question is that we can realize that it's our concept like a breakup of the stereotype of the normal family. So what we normally get is like a kin family, like a normal American family. But we can consider like it's not really like it's not like
Yeah, I feel like, I feel like Star's family is just a pretty normal Black family, but we're always given stereotypes in the media. We're always given these tropes around who we are, or, really, like, depictions that really simplify who we are. We don't always get the backstory behind why we're pushed to do what we do, what choices we are given, and why we make those choices. Something that I love about even Khalil's character is the media tries to say, well, he's a drug dealer. And because he's a drug dealer, therefore he deserved to be shot. But you get to understand that the reason why he was dealing was because of his situation. He was put into a situation where he did not have the ability to have a job that would give him enough money so that he could support his grandmother who has cancer. Literally a line from the movie. I felt like I was reciting a line just then. He was put into that situation because of the systems and structures that existed way before he was even born, that didn't allow him to be successful, that forced him into certain paths. And that's very intentional, those structures and systems are really intentional. That's why the film also explores the prison industrial complex and how from the moment that Black people are born into the world, they are placed on some sort of conveyor belt because of the communities that they grow up in and the ways in which they are policed and intentionally persecuted. So what we aimed to do with this film, for sure, was depict the nuance of our lives and hopefully demonstrate that just because there are certain choices that we are forced to make does not mean that we are not full human beings, that we are not good people, that we don't have full stories, that we don't experience so many different emotions, that we don't experience pain but also joy, that we don't love each other, that we aren't good fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers. So I feel like this is really just a depiction of a normal Black family.
Is there anything else you guys want to add or just leave them with before we wrap up?
No, I just want to tell everybody the movie opens up here this weekend, so tell your friends, take your parents, and just spread the word for us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, spread the word, please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of you guys
Have a
for
good
being
day.
here. Thanks for being such an awesome audience.